Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome back into another video. So, we're off to Gettysburg, and then tomorrow, we're off to Philadelphia. So, this will be fun. So, sit back and relax and enjoy. Okay. We're here at our first stop.
Here on the other side of the road, there's a wrought iron fence. Behind that is the National Cemetery, started 4.5 months after the battle. On the back side of the hill to our left is the town of Gettysburg Cemetery. That was here during the battle. That's why they call this Cemetery Hill. But all these buildings weren't here. This was a high, bold hill to the south of the town. After 4 major battles on July 1st, to the northeast and west of the town, where we're going 3 miles ahead of us, the United States Army will be defeated. Lead elements of it hammered back through the town of Gettysburg and pushed toward the south. Behind us, they will rally on top of this hill. What's left of the United States Army shoot with everything they have left down into the town of Gettysburg in front of us and hold the pursuing Confederate Army at bay. And that will bring on the next 2 days' battles. But this house off to our right is the Jenny Wade house. There's a statue of 20-year-old Jenny Wade in front of that house because she's the only civilian killed during the battle, which is a miracle. Every inch of the town of Gettysburg in front of us is battlefield. Jenny Wade and her mother will be in the kitchen of her sister's house back there. This big hotel wasn't here to our right. At 8 o'clock in the morning on July 3rd or so, baking biscuits for the starving United States Army soldiers on top of this hill, relentlessly shooting at the Confederates in the town of Gettysburg in front of us. A stray bullet shall crack through 2 doors, hit Jenny Wade in the heart, and kill her instantaneously. Only civilian killed during the battle, which is a miracle. Every inch of the town of Gettysburg in front of us is battlefield. Now we're going to go up through the town and head up to the north and west of the town and see where lead elements of both armies bump into each other on the morning of July 1st and bring on this battle. Now, up here to our front left behind the red umbrellas, and there's an open flag, you can see a brick wall up here in the shade to your left, and it has all kinds of white marks in the bricks off here to our front left behind the open flag. See it? Those white marks are Yankee bullet holes, where they're shooting at the rebels that have reformed barricades and battle lines across these narrow streets and alleys of the town of Gettysburg on the late afternoon, early evening of July 1st. And for the next 2.5 days, the Confederate Army is occupied and shooting at the United States Army on Cemetery Hill behind us, and the United States Army is returning the favor and shooting back at them in the town. Thus, every inch of the town of Gettysburg is battlefield. If you want to know if one of these many buildings was here during the battle, if you look by the door of the buildings and see a small brass plaque by the door that reads Civil War Building, July 1863, that means 80% of what that building was back in 1863 is still here to this day. That's how you can tell if a house was here during the battle. Now, right up here to our front right is the Presbyterian Church, a red brick church. It has a huge plaque on the front of that to our front right here. Why? That denotes that as a hospital. All the barns, schools, warehouses, and churches for miles in and around the town of Gettysburg are immediately turned into hospitals by the frantic army surgeons of both armies. On June 30th, the day before the battle, which is July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, 1863, Gettysburg and the surrounding area had no hospitals. They had 8 country doctors. By July 4th, there are 163 official Army hospitals for miles in and around the town of Gettysburg. All the barns, schools, warehouses, and churches are immediately turned into hospitals by the frantic army surgeons of both armies. Now right here's the square. It's actually round. They called it a diamond back then. But it's where the 10 roads in south central Pennsylvania converge and meet. And in the end, the armies are marching on the roads, so they meet where the roads meet. They do not figure that out before the battle. Now off to your right, look to your right. Under the tree, you'll see a statue of President Lincoln back there to your rear right. He's lifting up his hat to show the sculptor of the monument where he stayed when he came to Gettysburg 4.5 months after the battle to help dedicate the National Cemetery here. Lincoln will stay overnight at the David Will's house, the red brick building there, soon to be behind us. He'll finish the Gettysburg Address in that house, and the next day, November 19th, 1863, Lincoln, where the procession of 16 to 20,000 people will go up Baltimore Street, the street we just came off to our left, up to the town of Gettysburg Cemetery on the backside of Cemetery Hill, where he'll deliver his famous Gettysburg Address to dedicate the new National Cemetery on this side of the hill, and then he'll get on the train and go back to Washington, because the war is going to rage on for almost 2 more bloody years. But every inch of the town of Gettysburg is battlefield. We're going to go up and see where they start fighting. Now, in the third summer of the war, you all know who General Lee is, right?
Oh, yeah.
General Lee in the Confederacy, 129 miles to the south, to our left, is tired of fighting a defensive war. He is winning all the battles but losing the war. The United States Army, the Civil War is this. 85 years after the American Revolution, 11 southern states have had it with the United States. They do not like the United States. They do not believe in the principles of the United States. They do not want to be part of the United States anymore. They have struggled under it for 85 years, and they realize they made a mistake. They do not get along. The North and South are 2 different cultures. They do not get along. One compromise after the other has failed. And they don't see the world through the same sets of eyes. And after 85 years of being in a very dysfunctional United States of America, the 11 southern states say that's it. We're going to break off and start our own independent nation, a slave-holding aristocracy called the Confederacy. We joined the United States of our own free will, and now we wish to leave it. We have irreconcilable differences. They literally want to divorce themselves from the United States. It's called secession in political terms. The United States will not grant that divorce, and they will not let the 11 southern states go, but they'll do it anyway. And after 4 months of tense negotiations fail, hotheads on both sides start shooting at each other, and President Lincoln screams at the remaining United States, "My God, the rebels are shooting at us." And he calls for a 75,000-man volunteer army to be raised in the remaining United States to invade the 11 rebellious southern states, quell the insurrection, and drag the Aryan Sisters of the Union, as he likes, in front of us. See the blue mountains up there in front of us? They run from, they're the Appalachian Mountains. They run from Maine to the north to our right, to Georgia to the south to our left. Lee, well, June 3rd, 1863, his Confederate government finally gains permission to invade the United States. He will slip away from the United States Army down in Virginia, take his army to the south to our left, take his army to the backside of those mountains down in Virginia, and surge up the western side of the Appalachian Mountains in June of 1863, destroying little garrison armies the United States have placed there. To prevent such a catastrophe, Lee will hammer into Pennsylvania, where we are, in late June of 1863 with his 80,000-man Confederate army. He will make his headquarters at Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, 26 miles due west of Gettysburg, and up that road behind us to the other side of those mountains is Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, and then Lee will go to conquering Pennsylvania. General Bowdoin of the Confederate Army, you now take Confederates from Chambersburg, you start conquering Pennsylvania to the west, in that direction, to our left, toward Pittsburgh. General Ewell, you continue on to the north, which is in front of us, toward Harrisburg. General Early, you take Confederates from Chambersburg and you start conquering Pennsylvania to the east, to the right, toward Philadelphia. So the Confederate Army divides and goes to conquer United States Army soldiers, somehow fighting on a high ridge to the west of the town of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, of all places, against 15,000 other Confederates to the west of the town, in that direction, of General Hill's Corps. And my God, we're right behind them with thousands of Confederate soldiers and dozens of cannons. Get the boys off the roads. We're going to form a massive battle line in the fields to the north of Confederate soldiers and dozens of cannons. Once we do that, we're going to charge down from the north, hammer into the backside of Doubleday's army on that ridge, annihilate them, and win the war. That will be a major victory for the Confederate States Army upon northern soil. But before the Confederates can form their massive wall of men in the fields to the north, up where the White Bus is today in the White Shaft Monument, guess what happens? Yankee luck. 9,000 frantic United States Army reinforcements responding to the frantic call of help from Doubleday at Gettysburg arrive on the roads from the south and literally scream, "My God, what can we do to help?" The answer to that is, how about stopping the thousands of Confederates pouring down from the north So they flood up through the town of Gettysburg behind us just in the nick of time and form a massive blocking wall of Yankee blue coat soldiers in the fields to the north, just in time for the Confederates to attack them. And we're going to go up there to the north to our right by where the White Shaft Monument is today and see about those battles where we can see them. But Hers Ridge is right there where the White Top Farm silo is. All those buildings weren't there. It was just a bold ridge, just like where the White House is over there. But it's been developed since the battle. That's where the Confederates are, and the National Park Service doesn't seem enamored about buying that property and putting all kinds of Confederate monuments up there. So that's been developed. We're on the United States Army side. Now, Doubleday's men that were right now where this road is today, this road wasn't here, all of a sudden 20 cannons of the Confederate Army come up there on Oak Hill and start mowing them down, and all these Confederates in that direction to our left are shooting at them. So Doubleday's men right here fall back to those trees to our right, and see the ridge line to our right where the pickup truck is today and the observation tower is. There's a 4-foot high stone wall over there. The Doubleday's men that were here will fall back to that 4-foot high stone wall over there where all the monuments are to our right in those trees for cover. In the meantime, the Confederates are trying to form a massive wall of Confederate soldiers. That's how they fight in the fields to the north of the town and up on Oak Hill to charge down across these fields to our right, destroy Doubleday's army and those trees to our right, win the war. That's a major victory for the Confederate States Army upon northern soil. Now, the big White Shaft Monument up here to our front right is the Internal Peace Light Memorial, put up in 1938 by the United States government. It has an eternal flame of peace flickering on top of it. The White Shaft is made of Alabama limestone. The base of the monument is made of Maine granite, north and south. When President Franklin Delano Roosevelt dedicates that monument, July 3rd, 1938, 75th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg, and two 94-year-old veterans of the blue and gray light that flame, there were well over 250,000 Americans in these fields watching them. More than what fought the Battle of Gettysburg, and 1,800 of them were Civil War veterans of the blue and gray, average age 94 years old. And they're working on it up there, fixing it. See all the Confederate cannons up here? They're facing toward the enemy, the Yankees. Now, the town of Gettysburg is up here to our front right, where the brick steeple is. Behind that, about 3 miles away to our front right, is a high rise of trees. That's Cemetery Hill. The Yankees are trying to save Cemetery Hill and stop the Confederates from gathering their army in the road up at Gettysburg and getting up on that hill. They've had 2 major battles on this ridge to our right and somehow held back the Confederates. But now there's another batch of Confederates pouring down on the roads on the backside of this hill and trying to form a massive wall of Confederate soldiers on top of this hill and down the left side of the Great Plain in front of us, where the trees are along the edge of the fields, to charge out across this Great Plain in front of us, destroy double the Confederate Army, to reconsider their attack against Cemetery Hill at 8 o'clock in the evening on July 1st. Incredibly, the Confederates will stop their attack at 8 o'clock in the evening or so on July 1st against Cemetery Hill. Why? This is their reasoning. By 8 o'clock in the evening, our Confederate boys were exhausted, their soldiers. They fought for 4.5 hours, all the way back through every street and alley of the town of Gettysburg. When they reached the foot of Cemetery Hill and encountered a withering fire coming down from those sites, they were exhausted. It was starting to get dark. We knew there were still thousands of wayward Yankee soldiers hiding in the buildings of the town of Gettysburg behind us that splintered off and hid in the buildings when we were fighting back through the narrow streets and alleys of the town of Gettysburg. We knew we had to mop them up before we continued our attack against the heights to the south of the town. Plus, it was getting dark, our men were exhausted, and we had 50,000 more Confederates marching up the Chambersburg Pike from the mountains to the west. We show up here to our front left. That's made of bronze. Bronze has copper in it. When copper is exposed to the weather, it oxidizes and turns green. They would have been a golden color during the battle. They shoot a 12-pound cannonball about a mile. How far is a mile? See the McPherson barn way off there to our right, the stone barn with the white sides? That is 9/10 of a mile away. The Civil War cannon can shoot a mile. The black cannons to the left side of the green cannons back there are made of wrought iron. They shoot a 10-pound artillery shell about a mile. 6 horses to pull them and 8 men to shoot them. They were brought back to Civil War battlefields in 1895 by the War Department so people can see where cannons were at one time. But after all these horrible battles on July 1st, who has the high ground? The United States Army. Even though they've lost most of the battles, they have Cemetery Hill. As long as they're on Cemetery Hill, the Confederates can't claim a major victory here upon northern soil. They have to dislodge the United States Army off of Cemetery Hill. And July 2nd is going to be, how is General Lee going to use the 50,000 Confederates marching up from the mountains to the west when they arrive here on the morrow, the morning of July 2nd? To finish up his work of July 1st, attack and destroy the United States Army, now huddled atop the heights to the south of the town, complete his major victory here and gain Confederate independence. Now all these monuments They were put up 20 to 30 years after the battle, so by the state volunteer regiments to show where they were fighting here at one time. Now, and we take care of them. But anyway, off here to our right is the 97th New York. 97th group of 1,000 volunteers from the state of New York to fight in the war. They were hooked up with the 11th Pennsylvania to our right. 11th group of 1,000 volunteers from the state of Pennsylvania. Hooked up with the 107th Pennsylvania right here. 107th group of 1,000 volunteers from the state of Pennsylvania to fight in the war. Hooked up with the 16th Maine to our right. 16th group of 1,000 volunteers from the state of Maine to fight in the war to save the United States. That's what the numbers on the monuments mean. All those fences you saw up there are farmers' fences. We put them up the way the farmers had them back in 1863. All this is still private property, though it is battlefield. They won't sell it to us. We do try to buy it, but that ain't going to happen anymore. Not with all the cuts in the government now. It's going to be private property forever. But anyway, we'll probably have to sell some of the battlefield the way things are looking. But anyway, it's all battlefield. And all through the town of Gettysburg is battlefield. But the United States Army is on Cemetery Hill, and the Confederates must dislodge them off of Cemetery Hill to gain a major victory here. Now, and that's the first day's battles. Ugh. Quite a war, wasn't it? Just on July 1st. And Ken Burns, he does do a good job, but he better do a little more research. And his Civil War great documentary he made, he said July 1st was a mere skirmish. No, it wasn't, Ken Burns. There were 4 major battles up here. This is a huge battle up here, 4 major battles. And the United States was hammered all the way back to the town of Gettysburg. Up there to our right is the McPherson barn. The woods in front of us is where Reynolds was killed. This monument to our left with the Civil War rifles on it with the long bayonets on the end of them is the 56th Pennsylvania, 56th group of 1,000 volunteers from the state of Pennsylvania. The general standing there and pointing toward the enemy is General Wadsworth from Geneseo, New York. He survives the Battle of Gettysburg, but he was killed 9.5 months later. This is the famous railroad cut in front of us where the bridge is, all those bushes and monuments run around this thing. No railroad tracks in it. It was just a 15-foot trench cut across the middle of the field. And when the armies are charging on July 1st out across the smoky battlefield, they don't see that trench and they fall down into it. And the other army, using it as a man trap, will run up to the edge of the railroad cut, point their rifles up over the lip of it, and scream at the soldiers caught in that trench back there, surrender or die. Both armies on July 1st will use that as a man trap back there. Now we're going to take a left and head to the south and see where General Lee makes his Confederate headquarters when he arrives here on the evening of July 1st and what he comes up with on July 2nd. Left side of the road up here. Now most of the buildings on the ridge to our right weren't here, but the White House right there was, and 3 other brick buildings were on this ridge to our right. All the other buildings weren't here, and I'll show you what buildings were here during the battle. But there's Lee's headquarters. That's where General Lee makes his headquarters, that little stone house to our left. He decides to fight here at Gettysburg. May as well, this is where the armies are. The soldiers saw each other here and brought on this battle. Lee did not want to battle at Gettysburg, neither did Meade. Their armies bumped into each other here and started shooting at each other. And soon everybody's storming toward Gettysburg because it's where the roads meet, and they're shooting at each other. So these generals are trying to make the best of it. Now right here to our left, that brick house was here during the battle. The professor of this seminary back then, and it still is to this day, it was turned into a gruesome hospital for 2.5 months, shot full of pieces. 2.5 months after the battle, they finally take the wounded out of that house and fix it up. Now, and a professor still lives there, but not the same one that was here during the battle. Off to our left is the main seminary building that was here with the green top tower, the cupola, and there's people up into that tower. General Buford used that tower as a lookout post on the morning of July 1st to direct his men fighting off here to our right. The Confederates saw him up there and tried to kill him. 33 Confederate cannonballs struck the front face of that brick building to our left alone during the battle. They said that building looked like Swiss cheese after the battle. They were amazed it still stood, but it did. And they fixed it up, and it was a hospital, and it's still here to this day. And today it's a great museum. And this building to our left was here during the battle, the Reverend Smucker House, and that was turned into a hospital. And they finally take the wounded out of there 2.5 months after the battle. But Gettysburg was devastated by this battle. They called Gettysburg, during and after this battle, the way the soldiers and the civilians describe it are these words: it was a vast sea of misery. But Lee's scouts will report to him on the morning of July 2nd, the United States Army ends on the backside of Cemetery Hill, over there where that big needle monument is today. See it over there 9/10 of a mile away? And they have a wall of Yankee blue coat soldiers ending around where that needle monument is, going to the left side of it, right up that hill there to our left as far as you can see. Through the trees to our rear left that weren't here, Cemetery Hill. And then they curve out of our line of sight around the Culp's Hill, 2 miles to our left, like a giant horseshoe-shaped wall of Yankee soldiers. The Confederate Army ends back there by where the Tennessee State Memorial is, and their wall of men, because they're facing the Yankees over there, go right up this ridge, curve through the town of Gettysburg, and around the foot of Culp's Hill. And we'll get back to that in a minute. But the next monument we're going to see up here to our front left is the Virginia State Memorial, put up in 1917 by the Commonwealth of Virginia. And on top of that is a statue of General Robert E. Lee on top of his favorite war horse, Traveler. The volunteer soldiers from Virginia are represented by the statues around the front face of the monument. That was put up by the Commonwealth of Virginia in 1917 because this is where General Lee was on July 3rd in what we call Pickett's Charge. On July 3rd, this is the center of the Confederate Army. The center of the United States Army is up there to the south because of Bobby Lee, as he calls General Lee, takes Washington City. He wins the war. In the middle of June, Lincoln's going to figure out that Bobby Lee is not after Washington City. He's after Pennsylvania, Ohio, New York, and New Jersey. And he will tell his last effective United States Army to swing like a giant blue gate on a 40-mile front up through the state of Maryland to the south. You must protect Baltimore City and Washington City to the south, because if Bobby Lee takes either one of those cities, fetches those cities as he says, he wins the war. But you have a dual purpose. You must swing like a giant blue gate up through the state of Maryland to the south, smash into Pennsylvania, draw Bobby Lee's army out in the open and destroy it upon northern soil. And that brings on the Battle of Gettysburg. The United States does not have time to train other soldiers and other horses. This is their last trained army on the East Coast. Lee knows that. Lee is telling his generals at Gettysburg, do you realize if we destroy this last effective United States Army here on the East Coast at Gettysburg, gentlemen, there is no one to stop we Confederates from taking Pittsburgh out of that. Whether Sickles was right about that. But you'll see beaver ponds up here to our left. They weren't here during the battle. Like I said, 3 or 4 years ago, beavers came to Gettysburg and dammed up a little bitty trickle of water here and made all these ponds out here that weren't here during the battle. Now, off to our left is Little Round Top, Sickles. He's supposed to get his army up there where he can see anything the Confederates do and run a row of soldiers for a mile up the left side of that hill, up Cemetery Ridge. And the Confederates, if they charge out across these fields, he can ambush them and mow them down. I thought I saw a beaver up here by the dam to our left. There's a beaver out there. Oh, he dove under. Oh, darn it. There was a beaver out there. We missed him. Darn it. I saw him, though. You got to know what you're looking at. He was out there. Normally, they don't come out until 5 or 6 o'clock, but they were out there right now working on that dam. But right here to our left, the Sickles was told to take the high ground to the south of the town, Little Round Top. Where does he go? He goes to Devil's Den. Where is Devil's Den? To our right, this grassy, rocky knoll is Devil's Den. Sickles swore that Devil's Den to our right was the highest ground to the south of the town of Gettysburg till the day he died. Now look at the Round Tops to your left, look at Devil's Den to your right. Which is higher? The Round Tops. Sickles' army ends right here where this needle-like monument is, the 4th Main, and goes to the right side of it, right up over that hill to our right, a wall of Yankee soldiers. At 4 o'clock, the Texans charge from the backside of Devil's Den there, hammer into Sickles' regiments for an hour and a half, and Devil's Den destroy them and capture 3 cannons. And then the Confederates that win Devil's Den hear all the shooting in the wheat field and go off and get into the wheat field battles. That will bring us into the Battle of Little Round Top. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, July 2nd, 2,000 hot, tired Texas and Alabama soldiers. The Alabamians march 28 miles for no water, and the Texans are out of water. Will take heavily wooded Big Round Top to our right. From 169 Yankee sharpshooters, they'll kill 43 of them and take that hill. And once they get up on top of the hill, they're told, water or not, because this is too heavily wooded and rocky to fetch cannons up there. Charge down through those trees in front of you. See all these trees to our right? This road wasn't here. Use those trees as cover and storm up that half-bald hill in front of you, Little Round Top to our left. Take that hill and do all the damage you can to the left side of the United States Army's battle line. So here they come, hot, tired as they are, charging down through these trees to take this hill to our left. At the last second, General Meade will send General Gouverneur Warren of the United States Army up the Little Round Top to check and see, in his own words, if that fool Sickles left any men up there. That's a pivotal part of our line. Warren will discover Sickles has left 10 United States Army signalmen on Little Round Top. Not enough to save the hill. Warren will send for reinforcements. And see this monument to our left in the trees that I wish they would knock down? That's Colonel Strong Vincent from Erie, Pennsylvania. At the last second, Colonel Vincent will be intercepted by General Warren's aides on the backside of this hill, rushing into the wheat field battle. Vincent was, and he'll be screamed at to forget about the wheat field and get up over this hill. At the last second, Colonel Strong Vincent from Erie, Pennsylvania, will rush 4 Yankee regiments up the backside of this hill and form a blocking wall of blue soldiers on the backside of the hill. just in the nick of time. At 5 o'clock, the Confederates will rage out of those trees behind us and hammer into Vincent's wall of United States Army soldiers on the backside of Little Round Top behind us for 3 hours straight from 5 o'clock in the afternoon on July 2nd till 8 o'clock in the evening.
So, it's like this little castle. And don't ask me, I have no idea what they use this for. I know it's sad. Let's take a look here first. And even this view is really good. This is times 6. There's another thing over there that I want to go check out if we can.